Frozen Tundra Football League.
Good evening and welcome back to the FTFL Weekly Update. It is I, Brett, your host, also the owner of the Hulkamaniacs, and lest us not forget and don't believe a single decree you hear from that fake king and his fake news. I am the real king of the FTFL. It is now time to rev this engine back up again. It is the 4th season of the FTFL Weekly Update, but that is, let's be honest, small potatoes in comparison to what our league is going through this year. This is the 20th season of the Frozen Tundra Football League. 20 seasons of friendship, 20 seasons of rivalry, and 20 seasons of getting my ass kicked by Deesum's team. Good God, has that gotten old? Much like his titties and balls. However, I digress. Lots to happen this year. Exciting things on the horizon. Some new things to show you. Of course, speaking of new, hopefully you dug the intro. The draft. The draft came. The draft went. It went. It was a little bit different this year. 5 in attendance. Not that that's all that different. I mean, it fluctuates from year to year. 4 people not in attendance, although online. We've been paying for this website, My Fantasy League, for years now, and finally, we're taking advantage of some of the things that we're actually paying for. However, the online draft made it smooth, yet the wonder is, will some folks choose to just do that and not get together? I hope not, and I'll elaborate more later. 5 in attendance, 4 online, and 1 absent. Drafted via proxy. Try to see if you can remember so that next year, it's fine. I'll talk more about that later. We're also, tonight, we're going to have an update on Bart. Last year, at the tail end, let's be honest, we watched all of last year as Bart and his family were working diligently to get Brett his 7 cents that Jeff Marks, the math teacher in Browerville, couldn't even count to 100. 7 cents was on the line. Bart and his family went after it, and they got. Update on what happened to them and where things stand with that. We're going to talk some early Deesum candidates. I know you're thinking, how on earth can we have those already? We haven't even played a single game. That is the beauty of the Deesum Award. Of course, John, the current Deesum title holder, he kept a kicker. It'll be tough maybe to ever top that. There was a moment that we're going to talk about, and then we'll get into some of the high hopes that people have and do a little bit of a breakdown team to team on the good things, the bad things, and where I see things finishing up. First and foremost, let's get into this with the draft. And I think a really good summation of the draft and some of the thoughts on it come in a fan email that I received in the FTFL inbox, so I shall read. It says, "Hey Brett, just wanted to say me and my brother are huge fans of your show and can't wait to see what's in store for the season. We have a question for you regarding the 2019 FTFL draft. There were rumors that only 4 people showed up to the draft this year. I can confirm those rumors. That is correct. Actually, take that back. 5 people showed up for the draft. It says, what are your thoughts on the 4 people who decided to draft online and didn't have a good excuse to not be there in person? We all know Swart had a legit excuse not to be there, but what about the other ones? Do you feel this is a trend of the future for the league where everyone just drafts from home, or is this year just an anomaly? One would hope that the league will continue its long tradition of getting together to draft. Keep up the good work over there in your basement. Fans for life, Colonel Angus and Phil A. Shio." First and foremost, Colonel Angus and Phil A. Shio, thanks a bunch, and I appreciate the fan mail. Love to hear that you're fans of the show. Correction, FTFL Studios, this isn't just my basement, it's the FTFL Studios. I've got quite a few thoughts on the draft. The online function, boy, it really took away some of the confusion. And when I dig into the past and some of the drafts we've been a part of, there has been no shortage of confusion over who has been drafted and who wanted to be drafted. So that part was kind of nice. However, the worry, of course, is will people just opt to do that instead of making it a point to get together? Maybe. Ryan Deesum said he was going to go home after work instead of coming out to Sid's for the draft because it was going to be easier. We could start the draft earlier. Maybe a convenience, or maybe just Ryan Deesum dodging Sid, seeing as he's still butthurt over the 96 to 93 loss in the Fantasy Bowl. You owe Sid the title. You owe him to show up face to face and hand it over. Quit dodging him. As far as Adam Swartz as a legit excuse, maybe. I would love to see everyone at the draft every year. I just know that that's not going to happen. People have lives, things happen. I would like to think that everyone can make arrangements to at least be a part of it some way, somehow. If that's in person, awesome. If not, then please be a part of it. But know that you are missing out, because let me tell you what, throughout the 20 years of the FTFL, we have had some pretty hilarious draft moments. I often think about the smallest attended draft in history, the 3-person draft held at my parents' house where Deesum and I and Sid sat around the table, and I AOL instant message. That's right, well, that was still a thing with a couple of the people. Some of the folks were on the phone, and I think I even drafted for someone else that year. Now, of course, that is the year that I did win the 2003 FTFL League Championship, so maybe we should just always have low numbers and have me doing a lot. That might be the key to success. There was the one year we had a draft at 7 a.m. at my townhome in Eagan. Mind you, that was the morning after the Motley Crue concert, and I was in some real rough shape. However, that draft gave us the infamous Joe on the phone moment where he wanted Antonio Gates. I thought he said Reggie Wayne, so he ended up with Wayne. When we finally got back in touch with him, he was upset. But that's what you get for not showing up to the draft. And speaking of that's what you get for not showing up to the draft, I would like to express my personal disappointment in the fact that Adam Swart, you did not end up with Kanzi Walls. There was an agreement at the table. That's what should have happened. You weren't there. However, Commissioner Hagan decided otherwise. So be it. Speaking of mix up at the draft, I was once entrusted for Andy, and maybe it was the 3-person draft, I don't know, where he said, I want Peyton Manning. And when his turn came around, Donovan McNabb was still there, coming off 35 touchdowns passing, 8 touchdowns rushing. I thought, why would you take Manning instead of McNabb? And I still, to this day, am hearing it every single year. So many drafts we had to dodge. There was the year my brother and I chased the mouse around the room. There was the year Deesum and I went to get pizza and we got free Crazy Bread because they didn't have everything ready for us. None of you knew that we got free Crazy Bread because we ate all of it on the ride back to Dodge. Then maybe everyone's favorite draft except Adam Swart, the cabin draft. Woo! Was that something? A day out on the lake. There was Fireball, there was Jack Daniels, and there was a whole lot of mess. Jeff Markser's toilet bowl pick Tom Brady was magnificent. Adam Saltmarsh didn't even stick around for the whole draft, but I will tell you someone that made the most out of that draft, and it was Matt. He showed up, and within an hour, he went from 0 to just crazy Fireball, Cannonball. It was unbelievable. Since then has tempered a bit, although last year, of course, we were at Swart's house and Eric broke that vase. Point being, lots of fun to be had at the draft. Please make a point of getting there. Put it on your calendar. Plan ahead. It's always the Saturday of the weekend before Labor Day weekend is, as, and always will be. As we look across the 20 seasons of the FTFL, of course, it goes beyond the drafts, because the draft is what eventually leads to the season, and the season is where the champions are made. Throughout the 20 years, every single person in the current iteration of the league has won a championship, except Matt. Now, Matt, you're a little late to the party, so I guess we give you some leeway with regard to that. 2 individuals, Jeff Markser and Sid Hagan, have won the trophy 3 times. 3 times. Our original trophy. Now, if you missed the draft this year, you missed the unveiling of not 1, not 2, but 3 brand new trophies. The 3rd place trophy, like the one I have right here, only bigger. A consolation championship trophy, like the one I have right here, only bigger. And a brand new did I say third place? I already said there was the pyramid. I don't know. There were trophies everywhere, and I think there's one more on the way. Maybe, just maybe, we get to see that later on this year. But the original trophy, that golden football, I still laugh how I made that on work time as a seasonal naturalist at Dodge Nature Center. I was down in the basement using all their tools, using their wood, and that's been our trophy, and in some ways will still be. And it has been now for 20 seasons that has been passed around. Super duper cool. And then when I speak of champions, I've also made this point over the years. Anyone who wins their last game, first place, third place, fifth place, seventh place, toilet bowl, you're still a champion in my book. Now, of course, probably, as speaking of champions and awards, the most prestigious award our league has, the DSM. The DSM came about when Ryan failed to submit a lineup against a team who also failed to submit a lineup. He could have submitted a partial lineup and still won and would have made the playoffs. However, that one move caused him to miss the playoffs, and it caused us to create a award for complete incompetency with running a successful fantasy football team, and that award lives on. Now, Eric has never won this award. Never. Although he did draft Lamar Miller, who had about 15 minutes prior blown his ACL out. I don't know if that's going to hold up throughout the season, but I think it's a good place to start. I pronounce you an early DSM Award nominee, Eric, for drafting Lamar Miller after we found out Lamar Miller's ACL had snapped like a twig. Also on the toilet bowl, of course, DSM, several individuals have won it multiple times. I think the most egregious offense, and I will go to my grave shouting this, Drew Brees for a second-round pick. You people are just ridiculous. How is that even a thing? How does that continue to be a thing? I've asked, put Braylon Edwards. Put that I kept Braylon Edwards over Drew Brees on there. Put that on there. Don't allow Drew Brees, one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history and the greatest fantasy player in the history of fantasy, for a second-round pick. That's just stupid. It's stupid. Although my favorite one on there is when Swart picked up Joey Harrington for an hour. He paid $1 for Joey Harrington for an hour. That sounds like maybe services rendered. I'm not entirely sure. Hilarious. All right, now I promised that we were going to get to a Bart update as we got going here. Again, 7 cents short. Brett called in his friend Bart, and the rest is history. And we have learned now that Bart and his family had to wait out until just recently for their trial. At the trial, they were sentenced to 4 months in the local penitentiary with a possibility of early release for good behavior. 4 months. It was reckless driving. It was attempted robbery. Really, Jeff Markser, I hope you're happy. I hope some man and his family are now in prison because you couldn't count to 100. Just shameful. Well, with that being stated, I think it is on now to predictions for this year's league. And what I see when I look at the teams as far as we go, we are going to start with the North Division. Let's be honest, it's the best division. I don't care that the South has won the last couple titles. Whoop-de-damn-do. We start in the North with Team Linkowitz, who, last year definitely rose up. We felt that maybe keeping the kicker was going to be the secret sauce. In the end, it didn't work out. As I look at John Linkowitz's team, the good is Saquon Barkley, is Tyreek Hill, and even Brady, who he got really late, could potentially be huge for him. The bad, Samaje Perine, who didn't even make his original team. Yeah, he's been added to another team, but I really don't see a lot for him. Do you even have a second running back? Derrick Henry, who I like, has not ever been all that consistent, and that's kind of it. And then, of course, you let Gostkowski go. What happened to hashtag polls stick together? I guess this year it's hashtag polls hit the road. I don't know. It was brought up at the draft. People are wondering, John, what sheets are you looking at when you draft? We just are all slightly curious. With the conglomeration of players you have, John, I see maybe a 4-7 season in your future, which of course will not get you to the playoffs. The magic number seems to be 6 wins. 5, boy, I think someone got in once with 5, but 6 is kind of where you're getting in. Not going to happen for John Linkowitz this year. Next, on to Mana, 3-time Lucky Pants champ Mana. Jeff Markser, the good is the running backs. He is stacked. On the flip side, the receivers, Josh Gordon might be your best receiver, and he didn't really play much at all last year. That is going to be interesting to watch it play out. With those running backs, though, I still think Jeff is looking at potentially a 6-5 season, maybe a 7-4 season, probably playoff bound. Next, on to the team formerly known as the Pit of Misery, Dilly Dilly, which shall henceforth be retired. I'm going to miss that. All right, one last one. Dilly Dilly! All right, retired. Now known as Mixon Cocktails, of course, because Joe Mixon is on his team. Andy, Le'Veon Bell is a good, we think. He missed an entire year of football. You would think that would save tread on the tire, but I'm not entirely sure what we're going to get. George Kittle, Michael Thomas, also part of the good. The bad, A.J. Green is going to come back eventually. We don't know what he's going to look like. T.Y. Hilton now has to catch balls from Jacoby Brissett, which isn't terrible, but it definitely isn't Andrew Luck. And Curtis Samuel. Anyone in, I think, the Carolina passing game not named Christian McCaffrey and or Greg Olsen is probably going to just be stretching for any sort of touches. With that being said, I see Mixon Cocktails also around that 6-5, so kind of on the fringe of the playoffs. Next up in the North Division, the overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated log cabin pizza Amoli's about to riot. As I look at this one, coming into the draft, Swartz team, 4, maybe 5 first-round picks, in some ways, fail-proof. Well, that's why we play the games. All right, so as I look at this, you've got Aaron Jones, you've got Adam Thielen, you've got Julio Jones, you've got Mike Evans, you've got Deshaun Watson. You are loaded with talent. Now, on the flip side, Melvin Gordon might be week 10. Now, if he comes back and blows it up, you're going to have a heck of a guy come week 10. Leonard Fournette, I'm not really on that train at all. And you have 2 defenses? Who drafts 2 defenses? Oh, that's right. You weren't supposed to have a second defense because you were supposed to have Candy Walls until Commissioner Hagan waved his little gavel and saved your ass. Lastly, in the North Division, of course, the team I'm sure you're all dying to hear about, the Hulkamaniacs. Woo! The good, Todd Gurley, we hope. Aaron Rodgers, we hope. I think both of them, if they return to form, I am going to be in good shape. Chris Carson, I'm super excited about. Brandon Cooks is a solid number 1 receiver on a very pass-happy team. The bad Kareem Hunt, when he comes back, what is he going to look like? Geronimo Allison is about as sturdy as a wet paper sack. I drafted Hooper out of Atlanta, their tight end, and promptly dropped him, kicked him to the curb for Waller out of Oakland. We'll see where that shakes out. I, too, feel 6-5. Sorry, I forgot to mention the overworked, underpaid, underappreciated log cabin pizza Amoli's about to ride. Probably 8-3. They are most likely going to be the team to beat and should have been with those draft picks, of course. Let's be honest, fantasy football, as I have preached for years on the show, is mostly about luck. So let's all just temper things for now. 8-3 for them. 6-5-ish for myself as well. Again, I feel like right on the cusp of the playoffs. Going to need some things to go my way. On to the South and the Pack Attack. The Pack Attack is loaded on receivers. Loaded. Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I remind you, you can only play 3 of those at most, but boy, oh boy, trade bait potential. On the flip side, kind of like the opposite of Markser. We had a lot of running backs, no receivers. You have a lot of receivers, and really no running backs. Marlon Mack, Mark Ingram, Kerryon Johnson, all people who could have really good seasons, but also could go the other way, and you are going to be looking at the scrap heap for help. However, enough strength in your team. I see you probably around 7-4. A solid lock for the playoffs, and maybe one of the better teams in the league, depending on what happens with those running backs. On to, and if you were at the draft in person, yet another amazing moment, the Radioactive Monkeys, Adam Saltmarsh. We had just finished up the draft. You plugged your team into the Rate My Team app on the website, and what was the very first sentence that came out of it? This team is brutal. And we all laughed as your face was like, ooh, 3+ hours just boom, squashed in an instant. And I'm going to look at your team and I'm going to kind of have to agree. Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, you kept those two players and they are by far your two best players. Everything after that gets real shaky. Three quarterbacks, one of which was Kirk Cousins, who you watched play early in the day and you bagged on him along with me. He looked terrible. Good luck with that. Your running backs, Tevin Coleman might be your best running back. Tevin Coleman in San Francisco might be your best running back. Philip Lindsay, of course, yes, he had a great season last year. They're talking more out of Royce Freeman this year. We'll see. And oh, by the way, you also have two tight ends. All over the board. At best, boy, if you hit 4 and 7, but I think more it's going to be 3 and 8, and maybe even potential 2 and 9. I don't think you're going to take a run at the worst season record of all time. However, again, that's why we play the games. Next up, Matt, the architect. Boy, oh boy, I'm sure got up this morning in the news of Ezekiel Elliott's signing was music to your ears, because without him, it was going to be tough, because you are definitely banking on Austin Eckler to carry a huge share of the offense in San Diego. He may and or may not. But with Devontae Adams and OBJ, you have yourself some really solid receivers. The running back depth is where it gets shaky for you. And then Ben Roethlisberger. Is Ben Roethlisberger going to be a stud without Antonio Brown? If he is, well, then you're going to be in good shape. If not, it's going to be tough. I see you in that group around 6 and 5. Playoff fringe, maybe you're in, maybe you're out. On to last year's runner-up, holder of the trophy, dodger of the draft, Ryan Deesum, and his old, musty, gross, wash your hands 3 times, even after just looking at them, titties and balls. Coming in with some real firepower and your main studs. However, again, I kind of feel that some of the depth on your team is where things are going to get shaky. Patrick Mahomes, which I bemoaned at the draft and before, a 3rd-round pick. Hagen. What was that? Regardless, Patrick Mahomes could play 20% worse this year and still throw 40 touchdown passes. He is going to be a stud. Alvin Kamara, Travis Kelce are going to be lights out for you. Running back depth, Carlos Hyde, LaShawn McCoy playing for the Chiefs. Going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. And Kellen Ballage, 3 running backs who are all kind of, wide receivers, Alshon Jeffrey, Christian Kirk. There really isn't any number one. Your best receiver is your tight end. However, with Kamara, with Mahomes, with Kelce, I still think you're looking at a solid 7 and 4 and in the playoffs. I mean, you seem to find your way in each and every year, along with, of course, finding a way to just continue to beat the living hell out of my team. And lastly, our current league champion, minus the trophy, because, well, Deesum dodged the draft. The fake king of the FTFL. Maybe we'll just go back to the you need a bigger boat. The killer whales. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's always something different. Not all those many as Swart has pitched out over the years. Your team, too, is looking pretty solid. Running backs, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, pretty solid. Julian Edelman and Cooper Kupp, great receivers. Both very injury prone. If they go down, you're going to be probably hurting, because let's be honest, 3 of your 17 roster spots are being eaten up by tight ends. You saw what old Saltmarsh did, and you said, you know what, I can one better you. I will take a 3rd tight end. Maybe, just maybe, you're looking at flexing a tight end this year. Not entirely sure. However, with the talent you have, probably again 7 and 4, you're going to be in the running for the division lead in the South and potentially one of the better teams in the league. But let's be real honest. Draft whoever you want. Pick up who you think the best player is week to week. It really does all come down to luck. And that, of course, like I've already said a couple times, is why we play the games. Thank you for joining me this week on the FTFL Weekly Update. I look forward to being with you each and every week. I look forward to the 20th season of the FTFL. My goodness gracious, it is going to be a ride. Until next time,